Then we moved on. We settled back in, we went to the Valley for a while to work. Our goal was, once we graduated, got a career going on, was to go and service in our communities, because that was the reason for education for us. And then our families were back there. So we lived in the Valley for a while, and then we even went to the Tri-Cities, where my parents were at. And so we became service workers and started our families.
When I first finished my degree and did my student teaching, I got my certificate. I didn't really go into teaching right away, because my experience, what I saw in the school system was they hadn't changed that much. I remember doing translating a whole chapter, because there was 3 kids from Mexico sitting in the back of the room, and the teacher was not teaching them anything.
No material for
And he says, well, they don't know any English, and I don't know what else they can do. So instead of them sitting all hour long, what I did was, the best of my ability, I did a summary of the chapter and gave it to them. And then I gave them questions, and I developed all this stuff for them. And then I took over the classroom and finished my student teaching in Sunnyside. I did like the fact that we took our classes here at the UW, but we were sent to Eastern Washington to do our student teaching, so we can be in contact with the Mexican population.
Yeah.
The Chicano students that were there were mainstream, so
They didn't need the help.
There was not a language barrier, but the students that were coming and not speaking English were being left behind. So I was kind of disappointed, and I said,
things haven't changed that much after all.
Especially,
we're still fighting the same fights we had.
Especially when I got my evaluation, my master teacher did not mention one thing about me going the extra mile and helping out those students that he was not able to help. And
because in his mind, it wasn't a worthy part of his job to do.
So I said, I don't want to work with the schools
for a while,
because I don't want to be part of that system. So it took me several years to go to the school system, and one reason I did is because I was working with like Northwest Rural Opportunities, because I was in direct contact with La Raza, talking to students. On the side, I'd be involved with the UFW. It was a great, and we were in Sunnyside.
Yeah.
And we were enjoying ourselves, working and making a difference. And we said, we're still involved in the movimiento here, working within our own. But the problem with that was this was the 80s when Ronald Reagan was president, and he did his best to do away with all those programs. If there was money that had to be out there and he could not get rid of it, he would put it in the hands of the private sector. And so we had, for example, a program where kids would get tutored by us. I would go into the school and I'd tutor them. Even during the last period of the day, they'd have like a study hall. Well, it would be a tutoring center. And they had to keep their grades up in order to get part-time work. And we'd put them to work in public agencies, nonprofit. And when Reagan took over that program, he gave it to the private sector. And basically, he turned those kids into slave labor.
Yeah.
They would use the students' labor to make a profit.
Yeah.
And so I found myself out of work. I could not get a job in the Yakima Valley. And her sister was the one who told us about work in Pasco.
In the Tri-Cities, in Pasco.
And we both worked for the school system.
For a while.
Stella worked for about 3 years with them, but if you're not certified staff in a school, you're not going to get paid. Right?
Very little.
And you're only going to get paid for that time you served. So she ended up going to the state.
Yeah, where I belong, because I had gotten a degree in social work, so I became a social worker and done that for a good while. And I found myself not working as much with La Raza as I intended. I always wanted to do. I was part of it, but the main population that I serviced were the whites. They had all kinds of issues of being involved with family dynamics, family dysfunction. And I said, whoa, I didn't realize it was just that. Anyway, done that for a good while. Then finally I decided, I gotta do something different. There's very little change happening with being a social worker and working with families. And so I went back to school and got a teaching certificate.